Hello, this is Devin Burns, and welcome to my discussion on the Facebook dilemma. So, the biggest issue with Facebook is that the growth was completely uncontrolled and unprecedented. It was completely unexpected. When Mark Zuckerberg designed Facebook, it was a site designated for Harvard students to be able to connect with each other inside of the institution. He was hoping for at most 400 to 500 people to join this site, which is now in the billions. His original motto was move fast and break things. In other words, make it happen now and apologize for it later. And the overall motto of Facebook was make the world more open and connected. This is the mission that they follow without boundaries. And this mission was taken much more seriously than the quality of the product. So the design of Facebook was dangerous. Once the news feed feature of Facebook was created, there were algorithms created along with it to make your newsfeed as personalized as possible in order to increase engagement. So, in other words, Facebook wanted to put whatever you would be most interested in. That way, you would interact with the content as much as possible. More likes, more comments, more shares. So, Facebook was detecting, okay, what does this person like? What are they most interested in? And then they personalize your newsfeed accordingly. However, because Facebook is somewhat unprecedented, there was essentially no rules set up, and so they were allowed to create their own. So they took a very liberal stance with their rules and let people go right up to the edge and drew the line at no inciting of violence, no nudity, no hateful speech. But you could go right up to the edge before they took a stand and said, "Okay, we're taking it down. You're not allowed on this site anymore." Um, so the first time we kind of see the dangers of Facebook is in Cairo, Egypt, when a Facebook group was started just kind of expressing the anger at the Mubarak regime. However, this Facebook page got a humongous following, and a few months later, the leader of the page said, "You know what? How about we just, have a rally? We'll organize all together and have a rally." But this rally turned out huge and started a revolution that many people were very happy about. And although Facebook outwardly did not express their responsibility for this, inwardly they were celebrating that they were a part of something so big. However, a few months later, this same tool that helped such a good change in Egypt was now leading to very dangerous circumstances as clashes arose between Christians and the military police that ended with several deaths. And these clashes were aided by the algorithm that Facebook created, because anything that was more dramatic, anything that had more aggressive language, got more engagement. And because it got more engagement, it got more distribution. So more people saw it, so more people were engaged, more people were enraged by this information and passionate about it, which led to these deadly clashes. And Facebook officials were heavily informed of what was going on in Egypt, but no real action was taken. And they were heavily inequipped to handle these types of issues. In fact, there was only a small group of young 20-something employees making very quick judgment calls about what will be taken down and what will be left on site. There's millions and millions and millions of posts to go through every hour. And so they're making decisions at the drop of a hat about what's okay, what will have serious repercussions, and what's not dangerous to the community. But overall, Zuckerberg was continuing to seek profit. So he was left with the challenge of proving to investors that there is potential for increased profit with his company. Profit was somewhat flatlining, not decreasing, but definitely not increasing the way that they needed to see. So Sheryl Sandberg was placed in charge of boosting Facebook's advertisement revenue. And Facebook began collecting data that wasn't designated for use of ads. You know, the Facebook that you share on, the information you share on Facebook was supposed to be just for your friends and family who you chose to allow to see, not for ad companies. But more serious than this, they were collecting data that hadn't been permitted at all. So data about where your last location was, where you're shopping, what you were shopping for. Did you buy diapers? Do you have a family? These types of information that no one had any clue Facebook was collecting about them. But this information was very valuable to Facebook because that's what advertisers are interested in. And so Facebook began relations with data broker companies in order to start what is known as ad targeting, figuring out what someone is most likely to be interested in to buy and shooting ads at them. But the protection of information kind of got the attention of the public when an Austrian law student requested a copy of all of his data from Facebook. The results were very disturbing. Not only was there extremely sensitive information about him, his friends, mental health issues, sexuality issues, but the information was also beyond extensive. They had way more than he could have ever imagined they would have. And so this kind of started the discussion about how Facebook has no control over what is done with the information that they sell to third parties. And if these third parties are even reliable places to sell this information. For example, this information could be going to an enemy. So Facebook was under a lot of fire for that. However, in May of 2012, the company went public with NASDAQ, and this boosted their revenue extensively. However, we now see that Facebook has become a huge tool for mass manipulation. Back in 2014, the Internet Research Agency was developed in St. Petersburg, Russia, and it was used to create a false perception of Russia while also making the Ukrainian government appear corrupt. So they were using fake accounts on Facebook to spread false news about the Ukrainian government in order to enrage the Ukrainian citizens and turn them against their government. And Facebook used a tool that was created for ads, which is to pay for your stories to get placed at the top of everyone's news feed, get the most distribution. This tool was created for ad companies. However, Russia found a way to use it to boost their political agenda. And in 2014, a Ukrainian explicitly warned Facebook about what was going on in Russia, and there was no action taken by Facebook. So this is altogether just a new form of weaponry that we just don't have any sort of precedent to look back on, to learn from, to build a plan from. In 2016, the main news source for Americans for the election was Facebook. This is a dangerous scenario when Facebook is constantly being flooded with false information. And so it had become very obvious that there was a large amount of fake news stories. However, many of these were traced back to just a small town in Macedonia. And we learned that the people in this town in Macedonia were creating these dramatic fake news stories because they get lots of engagement, which leads to lots of money from ad companies. So the more dramatic, the better. The more attention grabbing, the better. Which swayed the views of Americans, voting Americans about the candidates in which they were to vote for. Russians also began creating hyper-partisan fake news stories to get more engagement, and these stories also got more engagement than real information. These were traced back to the Internet Research Agency, which is the same operation that Facebook was warned about 3 years prior. So the Russians overall have used Facebook to organize huge rallies and counteractive groups, having white nationalists rally together the same place, the same time as Black Lives Matter groups, and having these huge clashes take place. And as of right now, we're just lucky that these haven't turned deadly, because it truly is only a matter of time. So what is the responsibility of Facebook? How responsible can we hold a company for the use of their product? For example, we don't hold alcohol companies accountable when a drunk driver kills someone. Yes, that was their alcohol that caused that driver to be distracted, inhibited, and eventually take someone's life. But we don't place the blame on that company. So why is it different with Facebook? Well, Facebook has become one of the world's major information sources. So why are they not making sure that that information is accurate? A news media source, they are held accountable to keep their information accurate. So why is Facebook not held to the same standard? Facebook has refused to take any responsibility impacting the election, which is completely irresponsible. You cannot make the argument that Facebook was in no way involved in the election, because that was where everyone was getting their information. So when that information was false and biased, of course it swayed voters. Facebook also did not act after being warned of the huge misuse by the Philippine government against their own civilians. And again, Facebook was warned of the danger in Myanmar after a deadly riot in 2015. However, they took no action, and in 2016, what the United Nations labeled as a genocide occurred. In conclusion, I feel that Facebook should be held accountable to what is posted on their site, because they know how big their voice is. They know that this is the biggest platform on which people see opinions and see information. Although I do believe it is tricky to determine if it's constitutional, if you can choose who does and does not have a voice online, I think that it is completely unconstitutional to allow Americans to go so misinformed and globally allow misinformation